It's my pleasure to introduce the next session titled In Focus, Doing Well to Boost Longevity and Productivity. This session will explore the wellness industry and how it can impact our overall well-being, longevity, and productivity. I think this is a particularly interesting one following the one we just had. So team, come on up, and looking forward to the session very much.
So hello everyone, and thank you for being here in this panel that we're going to talk about doing well to boost longevity and productivity. We're well aware that after COVID-19 happened, people started to care more about their well-being, about their health, and that created an emerging industry of a very almost existing wellness industry, but it gave a total push for new products and services to appear in the market, and I think that we're going to live in an era where wellness will be more important than ever before. And that's why I'm very happy to have such amazing speakers with us today, all from different and various fields, coming from the health, wellness industry, biotechnology, that are going to share insights on this very topic. But before going there, just to raise the awareness of how important is this topic, meaning how big is the market of healthcare as well as a wellness industry. I have two questions for the audience. So go on Slido. Maria, can you show the first question? So this is, okay. So the first question to all of you is, what is the market worth of the global healthcare market? So this is a wild guess, maybe you know. I was also surprised of how this market actually grew so fast. And I'm really lucky to see that 75% got it right. So the global healthcare market is actually worth of $11 trillion. And this is the healthcare. But what about wellness? Maria, go to the second question. And that's, what's the market worth of wellness industry? Only in 2022, so just last year. This industry has grown significantly, and that's why it's a topic, it's a very important topic to talk and discuss. And I'm happy that this audience is so informed, because you got it right again. So this topic and wellness industry and healthcare again shows that it's a topic that is going to be so important for organizations especially because people are more towards wellness and taking care of their well-being on nutrition level, physical activities, as well as mental health. So that is why I'm very honored to introduce my today's speakers. And on my left hand side, it's Dr. Aleksandar Mitov. He's a well-known public health expert in North Macedonia. He has finished medicine here, but also holds a master's degree on public health and effects on environment and human health at Harvard School on Public Health. And also, he was special advisor of healthcare to the Prime Minister of Macedonia from 2012 to 2017. So thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you very much.
And then following up, we have Dr. Jasmina Boban. She's assistant professor at the Department of Radiology at the University of Novi Sad and attending Neuroradiologist at the Center of Diagnostic Imaging at the Institute of Oncology of Vojvodina. She's involved in several national and international projects regarding brain aging, neuroinflammation in various disorders, such as HIV, hepatitis C, chemotherapy-induced cognitive disorder, and obesity. And thank you for being here. Mr. Sourav Sinha is the general partner and head of strategy of Longevity Vision Fund, the largest investor fund that has invested more than $100 million in biotech companies. But he's also a serial entrepreneur, and he was listed as Forbes 30 under 30. And now he holds several roles in several companies as a founder and CEO. So quite impressive, so thank you for being here. And then we have David Evangelista. that has extensive global experience in the areas of international development, government relations, and industry engagement. But most importantly, he is responsible for the growth and development of grassroots programming in the areas of health, sports, and wellness of Special Olympics in 58 countries in Europe and Eurasia region. And he serves as a global advocate of the rights and abilities of individuals with intellectual abilities. So this is a very important topic that we are also going to tackle today. And thank you for being here. And last but not least, we have Mr. Nikola Boglev. He is general manager of Palestra Fitness Center, one of the biggest and currently very well-known fitness center in the capital city here. But also he serves as a general secretary for International Sports Federation of School Sports in North Macedonia. And he has finished and graduated from Faculty of Physical Education, but his prior experience is as a manager in several fitness centers, as chief of operation and overall management. So thank you for being here with us today. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. And I also encourage the audience to raise questions while we are having interesting discussion here. So to start off this discussion, this is the question to all of you. If you have to think about the current and the most important trends within the wellness and the healthcare industry, what are those trends? And Aleksandar, we can start with you.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'm very much delighted to be invited to Macedonia 2025. When I first heard about it, it was way long ago. And boy, I'm surprised that 2025 is so close now. So that was like 10, 15 years ago. And for me, Macedonia 2025 was something prestigious, and it still is. And I'm very glad that I got invited. I never expected to, because as a medical doctor, you don't expect to be invited where business is being discussed. So thank you very much for opening this topic. So immediately after I got invited, I got imposter syndrome. Like, what can I tell these people? And of course, I'll stick to medicine and to public health so that I can tell you something that you might not know. So when it comes to wellness trends, it's really dynamic, and the world is changing in this particular part very fast. And we have several trends which are, I would say, important. I would point them out. First of all, is this trend that I'll start with the negative, perhaps, and that is the trend of social media becoming so important when it comes to health and general health education. And why am I pointing this out? For example, my following on Facebook is above 150,000. So it's like more than 10% of the population of my country. And on the other hand, I'm not saying this to brag, of course, but on the other hand, the Institute of Public Health, compared to these numbers, has minor presence in social media. And I present this as a question, is this right? And we are seeing this trend throughout the world where individuals have more influence on public opinion and health education, much more than institutions like the Institute of Public Health. And I don't have the answer for that. But it is a major trend where you see personalities, single people have way more influence than ministries of health, than departments of health, than institutes and professors. And this is something that as a trend, I believe will only continue to become stronger and stronger, and I do not have the answer for this. So this is one of the major trend which for me is still a question mark, let's say. Then the other trend, which is very important, and I would like to share, is the concept of personalized nutrition. That was a concept that only 10 years ago, people, when they would hear the term personalized nutrition, that would be quackery in their mind, like, is it possible really? But as medicine advances, as technology, and especially in DNA sequences advances, we are being able to see that there is some science behind it, and it is possible that personalized nutrition will become a very important trend in the future, but then it will always, in my opinion, it will always remain an expensive toy. It is very expensive to make that kind of assessments on personal level, and then be able to project what a person needs to do in order not to get a certain disease. But then on the other hand, there is one more trend, the opposite of personalized nutrition, and that is the trend of plant-based diets. Plant-based diets are now becoming ever more popular. And the question, this is on the other hand, if personalized nutrition is expensive, plant-based diets are really not. Quite the contrary. So whether we will have this personalized approach or population approach, I don't know yet, but I strongly believe in the potential of plant-based diets, or at least predominantly plant-based diets, just like the Mediterranean diet is, for example. So this trend, I believe, will become ever more stronger, and we have a very nice example. I mean, there was this, I was inspired by the Nordic Secret. I cannot see Nikola here. There is this excellent example of Finland, the Karelia study, where Finland in the 60s of the previous century was #1 in heart attacks. Like, it was really, really, really bad. In 25 years, they turned the whole thing around, and it became the country with really almost a very low number of heart attacks. So such a change is really possible, and I believe that plant-based diet is definitely one of these trends that can help with this kind of trends. And then for the last part is, I believe, mental health crisis. This is one trend that is ignored, I believe. It is a lot of discussion about this, but I'm talking about our part of the world, and Macedonia in particular. And I do not see discussions about mental health as much as they are needed in our country. And I believe that if this is not tackled, this is a crisis which, if not tackled, it will only grow bigger and bigger. So these are, in my opinion, the major trends when it comes to health, healthcare, and wellness.
And Dr. Jasmina, what would you add on this 4 trends? So maybe it will be the 5th one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I have to agree with Dr. Mitov. This is a great pleasure for me to be here. As a medical doctor, I don't get often the opportunity to speak to people in business, and it's a kind of a strange field for me. I'm not sure whether I will meet the expectations or whatever, but I will try to add something interesting to this discussion. Speaking about the trends in the healthcare and wellness, what I have to add as a neuroscientist, as a neuroradiologist, is that the COVID pandemics basically turned over the whole perspective of healthcare, of public health, and of personal health. Again, we were reassured to the fact that we knew somewhere in our brains that our personal health is the most important thing in the world. So our personal health, our sense of well-being, is the only thing that is important in all our future plans. So everything is important, your career, your family, everything is really important, but your personal health and your well-being is #1. That is what directs the public health, the personal health care into the field of personalized medicine. What we now need to have are non-invasive biomarkers so that we can monitor the person's health, the person's well-being in a distant manner if needed, and also to be able to detect subtle changes that will lead to the disease. What is also emerging is the role of the AI, of artificial intelligence, in all the aspects of healthcare, from diagnostic to therapy. We are faced with big data, with technology improvements. Most of the medical doctors don't feel comfortable with it. We are facing the fear of being exchanged by the machines, which in my personal opinion will never actually happen. And also associated with this big role of the AI and technology, we are facing the partial neglection of traditional medicine, of non-pharmaceutical medicine, of physical activity as a cure, of mental aids, of psychological support. So there are several trends that are controversial, opposed, and I can't wait to see how that will end up.
Maybe Mr. Sourav can answer and add to this question, because he's actually working in the biotechnology and has a variety of experience in this particular field. So what's your opinion about this topic?
Sure. So just want to thank everyone for inviting me here at Macedonia 2025, for having me on the stage and sharing the stage with these great speakers here. And so I work in longevity, and I think one of the most interesting things about longevity, and everyone always asks me, the first thing they say is, can you actually reverse my age? And what I tell them is that, look, if a 30-year-old man and 30-year-old woman have a baby together, that baby doesn't come out 30 years old, it comes out 0 days old. So Mother Nature has already programmed all of this into our cells, and now we're just starting to understand what those biochemical processes are and how to harness them to reverse our biological age and keep us free from disease and live happy and healthy lives. And what's really great is that these innovations now can be more accessible in everyday lifestyle changes. And I think one of the things that we're seeing, and we talked about food and the quality of the food, but the timing of the food seems to be pretty important as well. So one of the more popular trends now is intermittent fasting, and that's where you compress your eating window to 6 or 8 hours a day. And that means you're fasting for 16 hours, and then for 8 hours you can eat whatever you want, as much as you want, but then you go back to fasting for another 16 hours, and you repeat that cycle over and over again. And what that's able to do is activate a process called autophagy, where your cells actually renew, and it renews your immune system, renews your metabolism, renews all your cells, and even has mental benefits as well, kicking your body into ketosis. All these sort of things that are really great for your body and just supports healthy longevity for you and your family and everyone else who can eat according to that schedule. So it's not really what you eat or how much you eat. It's more about when you eat, and that's probably what's more important than, and that's what we're seeing in the longevity space, that if you actually control the feeding window, these animals tend to live longer and healthier lives. So these are things that we are now identifying as just everyday lifestyle changes that can actually help us and help our families live longer, healthier lives, and we could all take these things home and these changes and these behaviors and these lifestyles and really help our families live longer, healthier lives, starting with dinner tonight. So thanks again for having me.
Mr. David?
Tomorrow night. Diet starts tomorrow.
Mr. David, what are the trends that you are foreseeing in your industry?
Well, I have to say, I will echo the comments of our first speaker. It's not often that somebody who specializes in programming for people with Down syndrome and autism find themselves speaking about industry relations. So consider me a kindred spirit in my inadequate sense of purpose here. But thank you very much, and a big thanks to Mike and to the board of Macedonia 2025. It's a true honor for the movement of Special Olympics to be here and to be part of this very important discussion. Just to provide a quick frame before I get to the trends, people with intellectual disabilities, not to be confused with mental illness. These are conditions like Down syndrome, autism, Williamson syndrome, a lot of taboo and stigma, but most of us know someone in our community that has these types of conditions. So this is the population that we in Special Olympics represent. We're a movement that provides sports and health and social services for this group in 190 countries. This is also a population that had a 6 times more likelihood of dying from COVID. Let me just put that into, let me just repeat that. 6 times more likelihood of dying from COVID than the average population. Now, you could say that had a lot to do with comorbidities. You could say that had a lot to do with, their types of conditions. But if you actually unpack all of it, our clinicians and medical doctors on stage would likely say that most of that comes down to health access and health literacy and the stigmatization that makes it to the doctor's office. So the trend that we have seen is the de-romanticization of intellectual disability across the world. For the first time over the past 10 years, and I'd love to get the feedback of our wellness and our wellness experts, business, and medical doctors. Industry, society, and medicine are now talking about this population. And here's why, ladies and gentlemen. People with intellectual disabilities represent roughly 4 to 5% of every national population. Okay? So any country around the world, the United States, my home country, España, my residency, North Macedonia, Malawi, Mongolia, China, India, no matter what country, more or less represents 4 to 5% of the population. If that population has significant obstacles and barriers to health access and health literacy, what you have is 5% of the country completely unhealthy, which means that they're not employed, which means that their families are suffering a poverty of access, because many of these families in all economic backgrounds have a choice to make. Do I care for my child who's sick, or do I work? And I can't do both. And so nations are now waking up to the fact that supporting people with intellectual disabilities and driving investments in inclusive health actually have drastic and positive impacts on economic growth. Why do I say that? Well, because the International Labor Organization says it. The ILO has estimated that countries that invest in inclusive health training of community health workers, primary care physicians, tertiary, the whole 9 yards, represent 4 to 6% greater GDP rates. So, I did my homework. I have one decent stat that makes this country stronger and better economically. But most importantly, what I have seen the trend is, it's no longer romantic. And I'll use onomatopoeia. Most people 20 years ago who saw or heard about somebody with Down syndrome would say, "Oh." Now, in the age of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and after COVID, people are now saying, "Huh." That's the trend that we've seen here in Special Olympics.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. That's quite a change in emotions when you're talking about Down syndrome, so thank you for pointing that out. And Mr. Nikola, what about the wellness industry here? What kind of trends do you perceive locally?
It's working.
Yeah.
I will speak on Macedonian because I will be more precise and clear. So the trends, I will speak in a way of fitness industry. Во фитнес индустрията трендовите се тракинг, значи пратење.
In English, if you can.
On English?
Yeah.
It will be.
Aha. Ah, okay. Ah, okay. Yeah. No. Do it in Macedonian then. Sorry for that.
So tracking for the training, good training, tracking of the how well you sleep, mindfulness, that's dealing with the stress. Also, how you do during your day with nutrition, and how you feel after your training. So also even the companies who are producing the fitness machines are trying to produce a software so they can help the clients to track their results.
Yeah.
Sorry about my English, but
No.
I'm trying.
I'm sorry for the confusion, so you can continue Macedonian later on. So,
Okay.
Yeah. And thank you for telling me that. So you can also have the translation. Okay, thank you. So thank you for sharing your insights from different perspectives. And then the following question, the second question will be towards Jasmina and Dr. Aleksandar. So how do you think in 10 years from now, so looking into the future, what will be the boundaries, or will be there any boundaries among wellness, healthcare system, and precise medicine? Meaning that, are they going to be connected in some way, or are they going to work together? What's your opinion about this?
Well, I believe, and we are headed that way, I think, there is a major paradigm shift in front of us, and that is to move healthcare and medicine in general from treatment to prevention. And I think that that is the major change that we are about to see in the coming years. Of course, this is very easily said than done because there are major interests related to treatment than to prevention. As you mentioned before, like at the very beginning there was this slide, yeah, right, where there were questions, and you can easily see that definitely there is more profit when it comes to treatment instead of prevention. So unfortunately right now, I can say that the major focus when it comes to industry is definitely with treatment, because treatment is much more profitable. However, knowing the human body and knowing our health, there is only so much that we can treat, even that medicine today is really, really advanced, but there is a limit to that. And what is even more interesting is that that limit can be only surpassed by prevention. So, for example, I talk about the majority of, let's say, cancer. There are at least 17 types of cancer so far that we know are well related to obesity, to increased body weight. And while we know that, it seems that we don't see the response from ministries of health, from public health institutions, to do something about it, to actually change what's happening with habits, with public education, and with campaigns. Because we are generally so far talking about these concepts that this is not healthy, this is not good for your health, but we need to see the whole society making changes in that direction. So this concept that is right now present, the so-called concept of health-promoting hospitals, health-promoting schools, and all the other different institutions, I believe we will see this kind of trends becoming even more and more prominent. So in 10 years from now, what I truly expect is to see definitely this shift towards prevention. So to do that, that is very difficult because you will have to change the current structure of medicine as it is. So just to give you a small example, for example, if something right now is, let's say, firmly discovered through medical studies, through articles, through journals, and we know that this is a new fact in medicine that we didn't know about before, and we know about this now. Can you guess how many years it takes for such information to become part of textbooks of medical doctors throughout the world?
15 years?
17 years.
Oh, I was close.
And someone actually went and made that estimation. So it takes 17 years for something that we know so right now at the moment to be a medicine-based fact, so that it will become part of textbooks of doctors. So, and you can see this lag. Even today in Macedonia, I'm not talking about the rest of the world, but even today in Macedonia, you find medical doctors and you talk to them about nutrition and they wave their head. It's like, come on, that's alternative medicine. It's not alternative medicine. It's part of medicine as we see it. There is another example I can tell you, and I expect this to change. For example, we in medicine follow protocols. So you, as a medical doctor, it's not up to you to do whatever you want when a person comes to be treated. So you have a protocol to follow. You have first line of treatment, second line of treatment, third line of treatment. And in almost all chronic disease, like diabetes and hypertension and dyslipidemia, high cholesterol, in all of the protocols, you always have this first step that says modification of lifestyle for the patient, which would say change their habits, talk to them about what they eat, how much they exercise, and stuff like that. And I see patients daily that come, and this step has been skipped. Like, okay, we go to the prescribing medicine immediately. And I believe that this will change, and it has to change, and this paradigm shift towards prevention will definitely happen, but for that to happen, we will need to see medical faculties being changed, whole institutions like, for example, right now our Ministry of Health, it's not Ministry of Health, it's called Ministry of Healthcare. Well, it should be Ministry of Health. So this is what I believe in 10 years from now to be the major change that we will see, movement towards prevention.
So just shortly, a
Yeah.
very short question.
Yep.
So who is going to be the major player in this paradigm shift? Or maybe there are three players. For me, in my hat, there are three players, but what's your opinion?
Well, as a medical doctor, I always start from my colleagues, but they will have to accept the role of educators more and motivators more, and maybe we will come even to a point, now there is this slight, very small movement called lifestyle medicine specialization. I believe that will grow, and many doctors will actually have the job of teaching their patients. That's it, like we talk about how you, like what are your habits, how we keep you healthy at the end of the day. And I believe that predominantly the doctors will be those, of course, treatment will always be there, but the part that prevention has, and in terms of numbers of medical doctors doing this, I believe will definitely grow.
Thank you. And Dr. Jasmina, what do you think about this?
I will agree with Dr. Mitov, and I think that prevention will be something that will gain importance in next years. I hope that it will take a leading role in medical trends. What I see as very important is for medical doctors to expand their knowledge and to expand their vision of approaching patient. So it's not always enough to offer one or two solutions that will have to do something with treatment. You will have to come down from your medical cloud to the level of a patient to see his problem from his eyes, from his side, and to try to talk and to convince him medical evidence-based, experience-based, what he or she should do. What I'm doing is some neuroscience in brain aging. So I will introduce the term of inflammaging. Many aspects of our lifestyle produce so-called low-level inflammation in our body. And this low-level inflammation in our body reflects to our brains. This is why we face a lot more dementia, a lot more cognitive impairment problems in younger patients. I'm talking about people between 55, 60, 65 years. These are people who still work. Most of them are at their career peaks, being leaders, head of departments, whatever. They are playing major roles in their families, their caregivers, their parents. And they face cognitive problems, cognitive impairments, troubles concentrating, troubles keeping their attention at a high level. What we now know is that there are a lot of small factors that will contribute to the inflammaging and to your brain health. So these are the things that we have to talk about, the gut-brain axis, which is very important, which is something that we maybe empirically knew 10 or 20 years ago, but now we have evidence that what we eat, how we treat our body is reflecting our brain health and our brain aging, which is very important.
Thank you for sharing this, because you opened the next question naturally about prevention. So my next question will be, how will companies and organizations help in this prevention, let's say, procedures in this, let's say, new trend? It's not a trend, it's a must-have, I would say. So what do you think, and I'll ask from the perspective of how will this change? Meaning that what kind of role will technology play in this whole thing, and how prevention can be perceived and worked on from NGO perspective, from the Special Olympics, from fitness centers, as from the startups. So what's your opinion? How can we work on prevention? And on the other side, how can we stimulate organizations and companies to take care on this particular prevention for their employees and thus boost their productivity and longevity?
Okay.
Great, so I'll start here. So Longevity Vision Fund sponsors corporate longevity programs for more than 300,000 employees across North America and Europe, largely in financial institutions. And that really includes programs that stock vending machines with healthy food instead of chips and dip and cookies and soda. You actually have healthy food that you can snack on throughout the day and that's actually delicious and good for you. Provides mental health resources for you at work so you can deal with stress. Also provides resources that these employees can take home to their families and make sure that they take care of their families as well. And one of the things that we really saw was these initiatives have to come from the corporate and the work environment, right? So for the families, health is always important, but it's never urgent, right? It's one of the most important things, but life gets in the way. Kids have to go to school, and then years go by, you haven't seen your doctor, and all of a sudden, you're diagnosed with a really bad disease. And for governments, health is always urgent, but it's never important, right? So it's something that needs to be done. There's a huge aging population, but then it gets politicized and health and wellness initiatives just never get funded. And there's defense budgets and all these other things that get funded ahead of healthcare. So what's really important is that corporate employers take care of their employees, make sure that they're staying healthy, able to work, free from disease, and not only that, give them all the tools that they can go home and take care of their families as well, and make sure that everyone at home is healthy and living a healthy longevity lifestyle at home as well.
David?
Before I answer your question, I just want to validate that in the World Health Organization, people with intellectual disabilities are managed or researched within the division of rehabilitation. My nephew with Down syndrome will not be rehabilitated. He has Down syndrome. So words matter, ladies and gentlemen. The words we use to describe things matter because it triggers, I'm not a doctor, but it triggers something in our brains that communicates an idea that is relevant to us. So if you live a life thinking that you have to rehabilitate somebody with an intellectual disability, you're living a lie. Somebody with autism has autism. They're not going to migrate to not have autism. And by the way, the world is better that they have autism because they bring unique gifts, unique abilities. All of us know that Steve Jobs was on the spectrum. All of us know that Bill Gates is on the spectrum. All of us know that these things can bring tremendous value to industry, to homes, to neighborhoods, and to nations. So I agree with you that Ministry of Healthcare instead of Ministry of Health, it matters. Words matter. Technology is a huge asset to making the world healthier, living longer. I'm gonna fast. I'm gonna try this 16-hour fasting thing. I'm gonna try it. And I'm Italian. This is gonna be difficult, but let's see. And I live in Spain, so it's gonna be even more difficult. But here's what's happening, and it's happening with people with intellectual disabilities, but it's also happening from people with intellectual disabilities. There was a study done at the University of Ontario, and I'll send it to you after this panel, that showed that people with intellectual disabilities, the most obese, the least employed, the most underrepresented in the healthcare system, they improve. How do I explain this? There are 49% less likelihood of being depressed by simply walking 2 miles a day. Sustained physical activity for people with intellectual disabilities every day, this much, not this much, 49% reduction rate in depression. Now, the doctors on stage could tell you people with intellectual disabilities are by far the demographic that faces the highest depression rates because they're excluded. They're not invited to the birthday party. They don't have friends. Okay? Okay. So that's number one. Number two, what we're finding is through Special Olympics, we're bringing sports and physical activities to the workplace. So when you hire, and this is my plug, when businesses in this room consider hiring people with intellectual disabilities, you're going to get people with different abilities, different ideas, diverse perspectives. And so here are some examples. Companies that have employees, and the CEOs in this room are not going to like me, but pounding away 18 hours a day like Nikola had mentioned. Now these people with intellectual disabilities are asking, can we have a walking meeting? Can we play sports after work, which may require you to finish at 5 or 6 instead of 8? Okay. In addition, now there's these walking offices where you, instead of standing offices, now you're walking. I was on a call the other day, and there's this woman on the Zoom, and I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, this is amazing, you know. And so I just started doing it. I'm in my chair. I just, you know, what I'm trying to say is, with repetition, sustained repetition of positive habits that make sense to people, change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. Maybe in the Balkans this may not be relevant because I know the rates, but in the United States, when you consistently told people, don't smoke, don't litter, the reductions come down. When you tell people, include people, you know, watch out for your peers with disabilities. Consider that they may have special needs. Then you have a population that is healthier, you have higher employment rates, and so on. But most importantly, it starts with the idea that stigma is unhealthy. Stigma is unhealthy. When you stigmatize entire demographics, you're plunging them into this abyss of undefinition. And that translates far greater than just health. That's economic productivity, that's marginalization, and we all know what happens when you put all those things together in a national setting. And so I believe that at the end of the day, technology can bring these messages to the mainstream and invite demographics like those with intellectual disabilities to be part of these trends and inevitably be part of the prevention rather than the cure.
Thank you.
Ние како фитнес индустрија покрај пратењето на трендовите на фитнесот, зборано од аспект на на мојот центар, сме во континуиран контакт со компаниите, тоест континуирано испраќаме корпоративни понуди со цел да ги натераме нивните вработени да бидат поактивни. Тоа го правиме на 3 начини, покрај давање на дискаунт или попусти за нивните вработени, доколку плаќа компанијата или они сами си плаќаат. Имаме опција и за онлайн тренинзи, меѓутоа постои трета опција која според мене е најефективна, тоа е активност на нивните вработени во рамките на самата компанија. Дури сме имале такво искуство и беше страшно добро. Тоа би го кажал од наша страна.
And just to get back on your comments to David and Nikola, but how do you motivate employees within organization and companies to move more and to do all of those positive habits that you have mentioned? What's your thoughts on this? Because you said, okay, you have walking meetings, but not everyone wants that. How do you motivate those people to change their habits and be part of the prevention rather than treatment?
So first off, I don't believe this is science. The doctors on this stage are going to be very unhappy with me, but ladies and gentlemen, this is not scientific. There's a little bit of cognitive dissonance with this stuff. We know what's unhealthy. We know, inherently. Whether or not we want to discuss that with ourselves or with the larger audience is different, but we know. We know. So, the first off is just being honest with oneself. And I'm not trying to be Waldo Emerson here. But being honest is number one. Number two, I'll use the example of Special Olympics, but there's a myriad of them in this room. Go to an event of Special Olympics. Engage someone with intellectual disabilities. Play sports with them. See what happens. Here's what happens. First off, 98% of volunteers of Special Olympics, and we have over 3 million of them around the world, 98% come back. So, from a sociological standpoint, you have to ask yourself, why? What makes that retention? What makes someone quit smoking? What makes someone start smoking? What makes them come back? Well, what makes them come back is this demographic shows you something about yourself. It's kind of a mirror. You see in them ways that you yourself can improve. They don't have filters. There's no masks with them. which is why a lot of people feel uncomfortable around people with Down syndrome or autism, because you're living a life well before COVID with this mask. They don't have that, which is why they hug sometimes and you're like, I don't really know you, but they don't need to know you. Unconditional love. But when you bring that to the workplace, when you bring that to a clinical setting, when you bring that to an academic setting, something happens. And that's why inclusion has left the boardroom as this CSR theme and has now become a critical theme in government and industry and in society. So I really believe that you have to invite people to a personalized experience like personalized medicine or customized nutrition plans. You have to invite people to try and experience. And like any business, and I remember the last panel was very interesting that we were discussing, make the modifications that fit your setting, your business, your nation. And of course, look up your local Special Olympics program. Thanks. Hvala.
Никола, како може да ги мотивираат вработените? Како вие им помагате на компаниите тоа да го прават?
Кажам едно мое лично искуство. Бевме ангажирани од голема компанија, фабрика, која баш не донесе на лице место со екипа на тренери да ги мотивираме вработените да бидат активни. Тоа беше облигатори, значи мора да дојдат на физичка активност 15 минути одвоено од работното време. Тоа не им кратеше ни пауза, ни ништо. Работевме специфични вежби на специфични работни места. Најчесто беа вежби за обликување и флексибилност. После 2 до 3 месеци HR свати дека имаат помалку боледувања, дека вработените се многу посрекни. Дури во наредната фаза дојдовме да супервизорите, тоест шиф лидерите на нивните смени, добија обука од нас, додека ние не сме тука да продолжат со физичка активност. Тоа беше страшно добро искуство.
Thank you for sharing this, because I wanted to share a few thoughts on this. We all know about return of investment, but how many of you have heard about wellness of investment? Please raise your hand. If you haven't, please look it out and see what it means for your company. What investing in wellness of your employees, how can that contribute to the productivity as well as to the return of investment in financial terms? And this is how I want to wrap up this session with the last question. And this question is also for the audience, so feel free to share your thoughts on this question. And that's, how will the workplace change by 2030 in terms of wellness policies? What will be changed in your opinion? How will organizations, companies, and even ministries change their wellness policies inside to motivate employees and to take care of their well-being?
So, workplace is a place where you spend at least 8 hours of your day. I mean, not including this new trend about working from home, but anyhow, even if you work from home, these are 8 hours at least per day. And it is definitely a wasted opportunity if you do not somehow make it to be health-promoting workplace. So far we have seen in medicine, in public health, health-promoting schools, health-promoting hospitals even, but why not see health-promoting workplace as well? And I think it boils down to culture, first of all, having this consideration that it can be a part of the workplace and not impede it in any way. Just add on to it. And now I don't even have the need to discuss about this in broadly, because you can just go online and Google this and yes, you'll find tons of information about why companies do this. So this year I'm shifting myself, so I'm moving from personal one-to-one working with patients. So the second line of business for me will be working with companies. So employee wellness is definitely on my schedule as well, because it's only working one-on-one, but you just scale it up, in my perspective.
changing the culture in companies, maybe.
In terms of being healthier place to work.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Jasmina?
The workplace's change will, I think, take place not so quickly. I think that we have, at least in Balkans and in Serbia, where I live, we have a really inert and robust healthcare system that is not changing that easily. A lot of solutions that are offered, including technological solutions, apps, and things like that, are basically not so widely available for many of the people. There is a large discrepancy between younger people and so-called middle-aged or older. As I get older, I move the line from middle-aged to young. But let's say those older than 50 or 55 and those younger, their perspective of health and wellness is completely different. So I think that maybe some systemic solutions must be taken. So the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Public Health should maybe think about introducing these systemic checkups, this follow-ups of persons' health. And also, I think that we are, maybe it's due to pandemics, maybe it's due to this development of technology, we are more and more being alone, feeling lonely, and not being able to communicate, to exchange thoughts, to try to prevent and save your own mental health by sharing your problems with other people. And I think that these are key points to make your follow-ups, your checkups, systemic solution that should be from above, from ministry. And the other thing is to be aware that we are not alone, that we are human beings that are by definition social beings.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts.
One thing I'll touch on briefly is you talked about changing culture in the workplace and moving it more towards a preventative, healthier workplace where we all look forward to coming to the office. And changing culture is something that's really tough, it's really difficult. There's a lot of leaders in the room here today. And culture is really set from the top. And I think that's where we really need to set a shining example of workplace health and culture. And we had an example with one of our companies, pre-IPO company, one of the preeminent genetic engineering companies in the world. The female executive was pregnant, delivering her third child, did not want to take maternity leave. And we said that, no, you have to take maternity leave, because if you don't, then everyone in the company will feel pressured not to take maternity leave. So she went on maternity leave for a full 12 weeks, not 10, and really set a great example for the rest of the company that we are going to respect the work-life balance and make sure that you're home with your family and everyone is encouraged to take care of themselves, their mental health, as well as their families, and we're not going to let work get in the way of that. So I think it was a really great example of leading from the top and setting a really great example of health in the workplace.
Yeah, great example, and thank you for sharing with us.
I believe it comes down to what you had said, which is the expectation. If you consider 30 years ago, consumers did not care how those products were being made, if they were made with organic material, if there was child labor. 30 years ago, no one thought about that. Now consumers are dictating to the companies, I'm not buying your product unless you, because they have expectations now. Those expectations make it to the workplace as well. And those expectations are going to shift the same way now there's remote working and, flexible hours and that. I mean, I was brought up in a very traditional Italian setting. You worked. That was it. There was no discussion. And you worked until the boss said you didn't have to anymore. That was, and you said yes. That was it. Now that doesn't fly. So you can imagine my kids looking at me like, Dad, you're crazy. But the expectations are changing. And I believe that wellness will be at the top of those expectations. And it will be what's available to you in the office to snack on. It will be 60 hours a week is not acceptable, this creation of boundaries. But most importantly, it'll be this idea of, am I given an opportunity to feel good so I can do good? And at the end of the day, it's very simple. If you feel good, you're productive. If you don't feel good, you're not productive. There's a lot of science, I'm sure, behind that, but the human condition needs to feel healthy energized and positive to be productive. And so I think that the workplaces will migrate toward these wellness policies that allow people to wake up and feel like they're in control of their wellness and their lives.
Мината во велнесот ја гледам, баш би ја споредил со претходниот мој одговор, дека во иднина ќе биде задолжително компании кои имаат над 50 вработени, ќе мора да вработат велнес офицер или како и да го именуваме, кој ќе се грижи за здравјето на вработените, за нивната продуктивност и верувам дека компаниите со тоа и ќе му помогнат на здравствениот систем, ќе добијат по-продуктивни работници, посрекни, а компаниите кои би биле со помалци од 50, не знам, ќе се најде некоја равенка. Може да помогнат, да ги активираат надвор од работно место и така. Али мислам сепак дека многу голема помош би било вработување на таков кадар. Меѓутоа да биде задолжително.
Thank you, because you wrapped up perfectly. And I just want to read some of the comments from the audience, how they see the workplaces change by 2030. Some of them say that 40 hours a week will be challenged by artificial intelligence, and people will work less than 20 hours a week. So let's see, we have how many years? 7 years up to 2030, so maybe these shifts will happen. More flexible work arrangements and more access to preventative health measures and awareness. And this is actually the conclusion for this panel, if I may say like that. Prevention before treatment, and organizations, meaning businesses, can help in this whole, let's say, it's not a war, but it's a trend that we have to work on, and it's a change that we have to make it happen. So thank you again for your thoughts, for your insights, and thank you to the audience, and hope you enjoyed this panel discussion.